I want to start with the accreditation story, or at least the accreditation results. So, because in a way that it ushers in the next phase of the college. Most of you know that we actually had three strengths and one weakness as a result. The strengths of the accreditors found, one was the quality of the instruction, the quality of the instructors was the second one, and the core values reflected in the processes. And this is not an accidental set of strengths. This is actually the specific things that many of the people who are working with the college were that was near and dear. The quality of the instruction, the quality of the instructors, and quite frankly, in my case, it was the core values reflected in the processes. I'm an organizational development consultant, and I wondered, what would it look like if you had everyone committed to neo-humanism? What would a culture look like? And actually, they saw that when they came. And that was really important. Everyone actually was able to notice that these people, without knowing anything about Ananda Marga, about Path of Bliss, about or about the college, actually saw the quality of our instructors, the quality of our instructors, and the core values of our institution. We did have a weakness, which was the reporting of certain aspects of the financial ledger, specifically refunds and other things that they wanted us to be able to quickly retrieve. So given that we had this success and people were so profoundly affected by it, we took to a survey so that we wanted to know, in light of the recent accreditation survey, has your attitude toward the college changed? Because we're not the same organization that we were a couple of months ago. And then secondly, what, if anything, should we be doing now that we're accredited? And I think it's important that we ask these two questions because it portends where we're going to be going as an organization. What I think we have to offer is, we're not just going to teach you about child development. We're going to teach you about who you have to be, what kind of personal work you need to be doing in order to meet the moment and to meet the challenge. And in all of our disciplines, we're actually focusing not just on what's out there that you want to be learning in terms of the knowledge base, but also on who it is that you need to be in order to meet those challenges. I guess. Okay, so the answer to the first question is, how are we different? These are some of the answers that people gave. We are challenged to dream bigger. One person said, okay, in the words of Pinocchio, now I'm a real boy. Then another was that we are powerful when we have a clear goal. Or we're more professional. We've been something of a mom and pop shop, bootstrapping our way, and now we're moving out of that with professional boundaries and opportunities. Anyway, someday you could actually look at all of these, but people were really affected by the fact that these accreditors came in and took a look. So in summary, if you took all of those together, it sounds like this list reflects a growing sense of confidence, maturity, and possibility. It highlights the realization that the group has greater potential. We have the infrastructure and the ability to collaborate on big goals. And I think that the two things together is the attitude that we exude, and also the fact that we've built something that was noticeable, that maybe we can rely on for the future. And of course, this particular set of slides and this experience and this presentation is all going to be talking about the kinds of opportunities that we might have in the future. So there were so many ideas that came out on what we might do that we took all of them and asked a number of people who are sitting on committees, people who are sitting on our board, people on our faculty, and we asked them to rate them, each of the ideas, in terms of the feasibility and in terms of the opportunity, how important it was for the organization. So the feasibility is by, do we have the people, do we have the money, and is it easy to implement? And the prioritization is the same thing. Do we have the people that we can do this, and how important is it to our mission? So if you can see this, there's actually three clusters here. The cluster in the upper left, this is going to be areas where it's a great opportunity for us, but we don't have it's not feasible. We don't have the capacity. Over here on the upper right, this is where we really should be focusing right away, because we have the feasibility to do these things, and because we think it would further our mission. All of this cluster in the middle are kind of the average ones, and those are the ones that we can hold by the wayside. So what do these numbers actually indicate? Well, the one that is the capacity the ones that in the upper left, this is where we should have our long-term goal and build the capacity to do these things. They're really important, but we can't do them right now because we don't have the talent or the money. And what are those things? Well, raising the public profile of the college beyond the Margee Circle. That we're very good at marketing inside of our community, but we haven't been able to market outside our community. Second is to become part of the national dialogue in education. We want to stand next to Montessori and Waldorf, which are alternative education opportunities. And finally, to secure a $5 million endowment, also something that we don't have the capacity, the human talent to do. I'm not going to list the near-term priorities because I have them listed right here. So the near-term priorities, and I'm going to ask for a breakout session on this. I think, yeah, we can probably do it in two groups. Mobilize faculty members and volunteers and whole-timers to engage with their local school districts to expand our CEU offerings and listed as an approved provider. That's one of the ones that a number of people felt we had the capacity and the ability to do this. The personal and professional development, utilize our strengths in personal growth. I think I've already talked about this a little bit, from the offer from the inside out. So right now we have that for our teacher preparation program, but we could have that for leadership, the inside what you need to be to meet that challenge in wellness, taking responsibility for yourself internally and then externally. In what areas is this important? Teaching, social justice, home building, interior design. These are all ways in which you might be wanting to understand who you have to be in order to meet the challenges of the external world. The third one was hot topics. Offer contemporary courses such as AI, personal and mental health, offer courses on hot topics to homeschoolers and others, internet safety for teens. So these are discussions that we might want to have on things that are current to today's world. Next possibility would be to vary the formats, have shorter classes, different types, maybe one-day workshops, to actually vary the kinds of offerings that we offer, and maybe the kinds of faculty that we might be able to bring in. And finally, new courses, adapting the Big Ideas program that Arun developed into the college offering. Cardinal Human Values Through Literature, another new course that Arun offered that we might be able to tailor to our needs. So I'm going to suggest that we have breakout, and we're going to ask for the groups to share what do you think are the most valuable of these short-term priorities, and why.
Time to discuss a little bit about what our future looks like as far as global versus local. So we need to think much deeper and longer about strategic development of where we want to go. Are we continuing the global expansion and hence students that probably need more support, or are we concentrating on local and instead of doing things for teachers and parents, which could be very difficult, do we get into a network of educations in the area supporting the various institutions, community organizations that are there?
Which of these do you think is the one that you think is most important?
Well, what I'm thinking is not even on the list, and that is that we need to figure out who it is that we are addressing. Like, who's our audience? Who's our
This is our community that's spoken and said these are the things that we ought to be able to do right away that would be important. On our list was the first one that people felt that it was low-hanging fruit, that we had the capacity to do it, that we have a strength in that area where we have people all over the planet, and that for places that didn't really know what we were doing, who maybe wanted to start a school, that this would actually support them in starting the school. That was from Chitra. I'm going to send this over to Rishi to talk about the development metrics. Rishi certainly has an important team behind him, but he's as the leader of this team. So go ahead, Rishi.
So, most of these slides feel like a celebration. It's a lot of work has gone into growing student enrollment, and this one here looks at the total number of enrollments that we've had since we started the college. So you can see there's a huge surge, and I think that you'll see that kind of trend, that kind of acceleration happening in many of the slides. We've expanded our team, we've expanded our infrastructure, people have been joining, we've expanded the number of committees. So I think our growth is really reflected not only just of our students, but how we're growing as an organization internally as well. Looking at our curriculum expansion, so this kind of tells the story as people are saying, hey, we need to offer more courses, we need to expand the content that's available to our students. You see that year over year, we're adding more and more courses to where now we are projected to have a total of 32 courses within our ecosystem of possible offerings. And so that's definitely a strong movement. This one is just kind of looking at our overall courses. Many of them are actually new. And so you'll see the ones that have been with us since the beginning are closer to the left on the top there. Introduction to Humanist Philosophy, really the foundational course of the teacher preparation program. It's how the very first course that was ever offered at the college. And this one here looks at our tuition versus donation ratio. And, as we were talking about this global footprint that, as a result of COVID and just the circumstances have, put us into the global spotlight. 2/3 actually of our operating expenses are actually supported through our community donors. And you can see those numbers are slowly going much higher up in terms of tuition. We started at 15%, going closer to 27%, but overall operations are being funded by our community.
Anybody have any questions about this?
How our translation is going?
Well, I'd say that it's been a huge learning curve, not only from getting translators, but using the technology. And it's a huge undertaking, we learned, in terms of having the technological infrastructure. But I think we've learned a lot. The students have been super participative in giving us feedback and making us get better. So Portuguese has been the one that we've had the most experience with, Russian, Ukrainian being the second. And we are now looking at partnerships in Ukraine that will allow us to actually have fully Ukrainian languaged content as a pilot. So that requires actually having those language speakers as an instructor and as a teaching assistant. So we'll take those learnings in the other contexts, the other languages, and now I'll get a chance to apply it more fully in this pilot upcoming.
So I have a question about whether you have compiled in similar fashion say you have 75 students, how many finish? What's our percentage of people who actually finish the program that they're enrolled in?
That's a really good number to know. It's actually the driving force behind our accreditors. What they look for is our completion rate. But that's definitely something that we look at on not only a programmatic level, looking at all of our 5 disciplines, but on a course by course level. And the accreditors looked at those completion rates, and we actually didn't have any weaknesses there. We were actually within the variance of the minimum standards. Obviously, we want to improve and we want to do more than the minimum, and we still have some incompletes of students that we're working to get complete. But we do have to report on those every year as part of our maintenance of accreditation. So it's very important.
I think our number is 67%. Is that correct?
Yeah, minimum, but there's many courses and programs that exceed that.
Right.
Are there courses that have higher rate of dropout than others?
Definitely. That's reflected in our completion rate because we look at the withdrawals as well, so which is technically the dropout rate term. But we do want to look at overall completion rate, and that tells us course by course which students who actually finish the course. That could be, people that don't actually complete all the requirements that would be factored in, and also those students that didn't complete it within the course time and didn't complete it within the 1 year after the course launch. So those 2 numbers kind of paint the picture of how each course is doing, and then we can look at each course. All that data is available.
And so one has to be a little careful when you are going from small numbers to bigger numbers. There are certainly a lot of anecdotal evidence. There is an anecdotal evidence at the other end that somebody didn't complete the course because actually they just wanted to donate to the college and see what we're doing. They said that much, 2 of them actually. And so I think we can look at the rates, and we should look at the rates. The other thing I would like to point out is that the comparison between our donations and our tuition is that we have set a kind of a target to reduce the gap between the 2. But then we had a surge of the number of students, and then it became a little bit difficult. And also because that surge was outside in countries where they cannot pay US rates and so on and so forth. So, but we definitely took a target as a development committee, and also I think the college as such is to try to balance the 2, bring them closer together. I don't remember the exact figure, but year by year we did have that attention as well also. So while it looks like it's static, it has to be seen with a previous thing with an increased number of students and where those students actually were from. So anyway, that's
this was a pilot we ran. You see the donor engagement program, and the idea was that we wanted to create a partnership with our students that were not able to necessarily pay out of pocket for the tuition, to work with them on developing some skills around relationship and connecting with their community to fundraise. And so while it might seem like a small number, it actually represents a huge effort by each student to bring in money that they thought didn't exist, that they couldn't have imagined that people in their community would have been able to bring forward to support their tuition. So right now, those that are in that development program have been able to get funds in, many of those from countries, as we mentioned before, where the purchasing capacity is much lower. On the right, you look at this is a huge celebration. The development committee is a new committee. We have Charlie Marchananda here as the chief development officer, and that, Amadevi, spearheading the development of that committee. So this has been a huge win for us as an organization to be able to set an annual goal target and then actually exceed it. So you can see there what we had actually set as our target and what we were actually able to achieve. This here looks at projected cash balance. Many people have been seeing this report internally, but this is now to the public. We want to be able to tell the story of, our overall organizational complexity and ability to look at our courses and what is our expenses on a project where our cash balance will be, has improved. And so now you can see there's a zero line there, and the purple line represents at the very top there our projected ending balance. Up until probably several weeks ago, we were actually projecting our cash balance to dip below the zero around November. But as a result of the development efforts, exceeding the actual development goal for our campaign, we now see that purple line going into the next fiscal year and still staying cash positive. On the left side, you kind of see where those cash balances are, the projected ending balances are per year. And just to give you some insight on how do we calculate this, in the income side, we look at projections of our courses based on what the actual courses are that we plan to offer for the next academic year, what the minimum number of students that we expect based on their price, how much we need to pay our faculty, and the remaining balance is that income line. And we also, all of the donations that have been earmarked and committed for a particular period, that goes on the income side. And then on the expenses, similarly, we're looking at, what are we paying for our faculty? What are our operational expenses and overhead for our staff, and all the different expenses to support the organization.
I'd like to add something to this, how this report got created, and I think I don't know if I'm talking to anyone more than Vishwapriya on this one. So there's actually the ability to do a cash projection report. We wanted to do this for many months before we could actually do it. So part of it, credit goes to Rishi, who began to work with the faculty and identify which courses were going to be taught a year out. So we would have a course catalog and we would know what courses were being taught. So from that, we could actually anticipate how much revenue we were going to get for that course, because we knew what we taught, what revenue we got from the course when it was previously taught, or from a course that was similar to that. And now we know we have these courses that are going to produce this much revenue. The second piece of this credit goes to Jai and Pranava and the rest of the finance committee, which is Pashupati and myself and Rishi. And they actually moved us from cash accounting to accrual. So now we actually can project our expenses out, and we know that we're going to have these expenses going forward. So with the combination of those two enrichments to our data collection and our data management, we're able to come up with a cash projection report. And really, this is the key report that goes to the board to see. The balance sheet and the other reports are interesting if you're a money person, but this is the one that's readily understandable to a board member and to anybody in the community that cares to look at it, where we say, this is where we run out of cash, or this is where we remain solvent. And it looks like we're solvent all well into the next fiscal year.
I would add to that last year around this time, we had this scare that we would run out of money in the month of April. And especially when the summer comes, there's very little income. So that means we would run out in April, and then by July, we would be severely in the red. 1 year later, we're coasting into the next calendar year.
Yeah, right. I mean, as the board president, to go to our board, with the emergency, we're going to run out of cash, as opposed to we're going to this is when we're going to run out of cash. And up until now, it was November. Up until this most recent donation, it was November. But I felt confident that was going to be right around the time of the annual campaign. We'd be able to go to our reliable donors and kind of get some early annual donation. But now we're really not going to the public with that kind of emergency, please donate right now, because we're going to fall apart if we don't have some cash. This way, we're really able to show we're an organization that people support. Donna, this one's for you. So I'd like you to tell the donor circle where the foundations that we've been able to establish
Well, we started the development committee around this time last year, and I was invited to it, and I asked for three things. Tell me where we are financially, tell me the complete list of donors that we had. And after looking at that, I said, well, the fact that you're going to run out of money in 1 month, and that the fact that you have very few donors actually is understandable. And so we tried to address this by a three-pronged donation strategy. What do we have in small donors, medium donors, and large donors? And what could we possibly do about it? And the first thing which we discussed was that culture eats strategy for lunch. Was it breakfast or lunch? I forget. Anyway, so we had, until that point, and we still are, very reliant on a very small group of donors. What do we need to do? And I said, everybody who's involved with the college needs to understand that they are a potential fundraiser, and that their circle of friends and families are legitimate targets for fundraising for the wonderful project that we have. This was not in people's mind when I came 1 year ago. I'm happy to report that there are now conversations with people that says, oh, actually, come to think of it, my relative this and my friend that is willing to donate. And it has happened. And so I would be so frivolent to say that we have had a slight cultural change in the college, that there are more donors. It's not going from 5 to 500 in a year, but it's going from 10 to 30 donors, and some of them are substantial, and that's why we could exceed our target this year. Part of that was planned giving, and Poe had a large contribution to that. And we were able to actually, I guess I can say this, we had our first planned giving, legacy giving, as a committee. That was not something anybody wanted to talk about. It's a very strange thing for general people to talk about. And nobody wants to plan for their own demise or their loved one's demise for that matter. But we are now able to talk about it openly. We talked about it at the gathering in October. And yeah, one of them came through. It wasn't like earth-shattering amount but it was enough to lift us up for the year. So the goal of this, the last prong, is to have this annual campaign, right? So culture change, planned giving, and the third part is to have an annual campaign and go from the emergency collections that David talked about to actually have an annual campaign that informs the organization how much money we have for the next fiscal year. So like get out of the panic budgets and get into the plan mission. So I think this has been accomplished in 1 year, which was actually much faster than I envisioned. I told folks this is going to take 2 years before we even get any of these on track. And here we are. I can see a track. So I am terribly inspired, despite maybe I would like to see another zero on all the numbers, but the track is there. Now it's just a question of how big of a train can we put on that track? So that's the next year's sort of challenge.
So it looks, we actually thought that perhaps we could do some discussion on suggestions about the annual campaign that'll be coming up. I don't think.
You said it is coming up. Did you have a date planned for this?
Yeah, I'll let you talk about annual campaign and when it starts and why and all of that, because I remember that was one of the first things that you said. Every nonprofit has an annual campaign, and they always have it at the same time.
Yeah, so the annual campaign in America, depending slightly on your constituents, but it starts in November and finishes in January. Pope reminded us that the Orthodox keeps going to January 10, and somebody was kindly pointed out that the Indian starts in October. But basically, I mean, in a simplified form, it starts at Thanksgiving and finishes at Christmas, like that 30-day period. And then you can tack on a few extra weeks on both sides. That is the season of giving. It's the day of giving. It's the religious celebration of community and the euphoria of their, various cultures and, religious celebrations. And so what has happened in America is that a lot of the fundraising have shifted into that because of the effort involved in the campaign very often is large. And because donor fatigue, how many times a year can you get hit up by the same organization? So what has happened over the decades of fundraising, let's say in the last 30 years, it has shifted into this lump sum at the end of the year. Now, some people give regularly, and that's glorious and fantastic. But the effort by the organization has come for this annual campaign, which is then, I would say, a 2 months period at the end of the year. So that is the annual campaign. And it's mostly, you're looking for donations that are unrestricted. The big legacy donations and the major donors, they give things to certain programs or to certain expansions or whatever. The annual campaign is mostly about getting donations that we can put into our budget and basically fit into our plan. How big of a part would the annual campaign be in terms of our total fundraising for the year? That's a bit too early to say. We had this year that it would be 2/3 of it. It ended up being 1/3 of it. I would say next year we can project it a little better, and I'm curious to see what you think about an annual campaign and what could be done. Actually, earlier today, Pashupati said he would like to see a clearer small donor sponsorship of what we do. You can sponsor a student for a short course for this amount of money. You can sponsor a student for a medium size for that amount of money. Like check of things that are very real and very effective to communicate. And we have been doing that. We could definitely step up the presentations on that and give examples in a better way.
So you're saying that you are planning an annual campaign for the end of the calendar year?
Yeah, end of calendar year. Yeah, not fiscal year. It's a calendar year.
Right.
Yeah. So we start, depending on when we want to start, but I would say 15 November is last call for starting it, because you need to motivate volunteers and members and previous donors to say it's coming and now we're doing it, and here's the material you need, so that the people that we communicate is not just the donation, but the fact that they can go out and ask their circles for this glorious call called the Neo-Humanist College of Asheville. Then things have to be set up, the PR, the budget, everything has to be prepared months in advance.
Yeah.
And then your volunteers, your sympathizers, your previous donors should know that the campaign is happening at that time. So that there are some months before that.
So there's another reason for these annual campaigns to take place at that time of the year. And that is for those of us who get tax benefits from, we know by the end of the year, okay, so, hey, we need another, $25,000 in donations to 501c3s in order to bring our tax bite down.
Call me.
No, I'm just saying that's another reason.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah.
It's not just because it's the season of giving. It's also the beginning.
Oh, yeah. It's like you're throwing money away if you don't donate it, basically.
Right.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Correct.
Speaking from experience, that's when people would come in on December 29th and, write out 10 checks or whatever it is. And it's like, get it in the mail.
Our office is open.
So how do we change that mindset, so that you don't just give then. You give, there are 3 other times during the year that you can give.
Actually, a lot of charities, right, would so much prefer if the money came in June, in March, and whatever.
Okay, so I can answer this because we thought about that. And one of the things we needed was a constituent management system. Sometimes it's called a CRM, sometimes it's called something else. But we look at it from fundraising point of view as a constituent management system. So let's say somebody donates at any given time throughout the year. It could be $5, it could be $500. They will receive a thank you email, and they will receive an invitation to participate in the annual campaign. so that we will create journeys of communication within the software. And so if somebody donates for the annual campaign, they will get the annual campaign thank you. And they will design reminders a little bit based on how much they donate. And they will get different messaging throughout the year related to that. We're certainly not just going to send one email a year. Hi, the annual campaign is starting on November 15th. There's going to be other communications, but they may be different in nature. They may be inspiring in nature. It may be a case study, a student testimonial with a link to donate. That will go on. And the goal there would be to get people closer to the mission, set up monthly donation. But I'm not a guru in this field, but I would rather have a $2,000 donation at the annual campaign than get $100 a month.
I also want to say there's a couple of other things that, again, as Mr. Priya knows, organizational development is the thing that kind of gets me out of bed in the morning. And so to create a community amongst all of the people who are willing to support the college is near and dear to me. The presentation that you heard today, most of it was done, Dada and Rishi and I worked on it together, and it took Rishi a lot for us to get ourselves all the way there. It took some committee work to actually think through, okay, so what are all the things that we want to tell everybody about, because we've done some work and that we've had some successes. But don't you think we should have been telling people this stuff all the way along? I mean, there's some pretty exciting stuff that we've been able to do working together. So how come we didn't actually our newsletter is one communication device, but we have a special target of people who have supported us financially. And theoretically, if they've supported us financially, they're interested in financial information. Mm-hmm. So that's not the stuff that goes out to everybody. That's the stuff that goes out only to the people who really care about finances.
Right.
And this way, we're actually going to have software that identifies those people that we can be in contact with and who may be able to contribute to our thinking on how to manage our financial situation. Mm-hmm. So that maybe was a long time.
Just a point of information, when before I started working with the Neo-Humanist College, I was in the position of managing annual campaigns for two other organizations. And one of the organizations, both of them actually, I managed the financial flow of two big arts organizations. And what I found best was to have something happen each quarter. Mm-hmm. And it could, with the theater, it was obvious,
the plays
that you had this is beyond the regular programming. I had a volunteer come in and say, I had this great idea. Let's have a competition, and we're going to call it Divas. And, we have like 10 to 15 actresses and actors who they're divas, but they do the fundraising. Those guys, they don't win on their talent, although it's a talent show. They win on how much money they bring in. So that was one quarter, So if we could come up with a strategy for having some kind of quarterly emphasis, I don't know exactly what it would be, because I haven't really thought about this for the college before. But whether it be, celebrating graduation in June, because you do have to, as a donor to lots of organizations, I get fatigued by all of the asks, and you can ask too many times. Mm-hmm. And for example, the Holocaust Museum in Washington, because I don't know, Poe, you may not know this, but part of our family are Holocaust survivors. And they ask on a weekly basis. I mean, and I get to the point where I don't even open the envelope anymore, just throw it out. You know, I will give 2 times a year or something like that, but I'm not going to give every week or every month, you know. And
Yeah.
there are some organizations where I just go, you've just asked me too many times, so you're off my list.
Yeah, quarterly is pretty much the industrial standard. I don't know what Poe has seen out there, but that's what I have seen. It doesn't have to be a direct ask. It could be an indirect ask, but definitely a communication
Right,
every 3 months. If we can,
right.
I love your idea about jazzing it up with some kind of fun, interesting ways to collect money, but at least substantial, happy, good news. We are doing the newsletters. We just have to tweak it a little bit. I think are we doing a quarterly newsletter? Is that what we're doing, Rishi? Where are we at with that?
Monthly.
Monthly, yeah. Anyway, that's something for us to consider whether we want to continue the current newsletter format or we want to bundle it in more elaborate quarterlies. You know, that's something to consider.
In fact, here in Vietnam, there are two ways to ask for donation. The quarterly donation, and also on the other hand, the eventual donation.
Which one is more successful?
I think eventual donation is more successful than the annual donation. Eventual, that means we operate events weekly or monthly, and we ask for donation. We don't fix the price to attend the events. We just ask for donation. People come and give, and I think it's more successful than the annual donation. Yes, our events are both in person and on Zoom.
So, for example, the seminar that was given on Vrittis, that had so many people there. That was a good opportunity to have some kind of message. Yeah.
Yes, I think so.
I think you are onto something. I think that we are still very much in the Margi Yoga community. This is a fact. You know, both our mailing list, our donors, absolutely. And to offer some events that really satisfy the appetite for spiritual technology, philosophy, ethical type of topics.
Right.
And make donation tickets there. I think that's completely genuine.
Yeah.
Well, I think you could do a Divas thing.
Are you offering yourself as the
Isn't
first
that
clown?
understandable?
I'm sure he is. I'm
Head of-
sure he is.
Head of the
Let me tell
clowning
you what we did in
department.
Cinderella. I used to make $100,000 in 1 week.
And I'm willing to put on a red nose.
Well, you could do a Divas competition with various categories, like people doing original songs, you know, bhajans that they wrote, or band presentations, or Baba stories, and so you could perhaps you could split it up a little bit. I mean, the Divas thing is purely on the money raised. You could make it a little ideological and give people an extra 5 points for talent or for what they did. And so there would be a competition. You would have competition on things like that. It would probably be a lot of fun.
Yeah, interesting.
That is a really good idea.
I think we should start with stand-up comedy.
Because this is a place that you'll know things about the college that you wouldn't necessarily know from our from our newsletter, or even if you were sitting on a committee where you have a siloed view of what's going on, you're going to hear about the specifics of that particular area. But, when you look at the college as a whole, it's a very exciting opportunity, a very exciting initiative. And I think people who care about the mission of Anandamurti will be happy to hear about what's going on. So
I like to give some kudos to the presentation and the graphic and statistics. I think that's well.
And I want to know if you have anything more that you'd like to say about the future, what we're going to be doing, or did you pretty much cover it in this free-floating conversation? That might have been the case.
We could call the program Divas and Davies, and that would be entirely consistent with Anandamarga.
Divas and Davies. Yeah.
Is there anything we missed?
No, I think well, I should mention that we've had some external consultancy that we got for free who looked at how we operate and what we really need. One of the biggest things they pointed out was to have a proper constituency management system, CRM, that our resources as far as data and contacts and accounts, it's scattered in 27 different softwares. And so we really hope that we were able to streamline a little bit our communication, getting our emails and physical addresses sorted, and a lot of the stuff that has fallen off the wayside. I mean, I think this is a big step for us to actually become an institution, to have that capability. And I look forward in the coming year to improving that, and also take some volunteers and those who like to talk about organization and money to take a picture to come inside and see what we got and where we can develop things together, and hope for it.
The only other thing that I would like to add to the future is that because we are cash positive going well into the next year, we have the opportunity to think about strategic planning and what kinds of things we would like to invest in. The CRM system is one that we're sure about, but there's others, and the suggestions that were made on where you think it's positive to bring the organization forward, those kinds of things, we might take investments, and we have the ability to think about that as a result.
Yeah, no, you just triggered something in me, and that was a conversation that Po and I have had about planned giving, of offering better tools and advice and like journeys for people, and we might need to throw some resources at that. Because I think
I have some definite opinions about that. I'm not going to share them right now because I'm sure we don't have time, but
right.
I want to be part of that conversation because I have a lot to say about that.
We would love to.
Done.
Because there's many ways that can be done, just like the weekly bombardment from a certain organization. There are also planned giving that could further enhance or also upset our donor base and future donors. So yeah, that has to be done in our neo-humanist spirit.
Very careful.
Yeah. So I would love to talk to you about that. And Po, I think you and I could definitely spend some time, the three of us together, chalking out a better strategy. We just put up some basics on our website just so that we have it, and encourage the few leads that we have. And we actually do have a couple of live leads that we need to nurture. But that should not prevent us from actually thinking deeper about it and creating a strategy together. Yeah, I'd love to do that. Thank you for offering that.
Okay. Rishi, anything you want to add to this before we let people? Okay. I want to thank all of you for giving your support. It's nice to know that we have a team behind us. So thank you.